Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is going to be a bit of a controversial video where I bring up a bit of an old debate and a bit of a question that I want to pose out to anyone that's listening to this video. And the question is, what are true first appearances? And one of the things that I always think about whenever I think of what is the first appearance of some major character is I think of when do we first see them in print. That is generally the time that I think of as being that character's first appearance. So with that being said, I want to show you some examples and then we can kind of figure out what is a true first appearance and what is a cameo, what is a first full appearance, like all of those things. I'm going to try to address that in this video. And bear with me because I'm not 100% sure. And I'm really asking these questions just to get the conversation going so that we can figure out what really is that first appearance. So I'm going to start with the most controversial one. Might as well, right? Start with a bang, right? And I brought two comics to really start this big controversy off. And we got the most famous controversy with the first appearance is Hulk 180. Hulk 180 is, in my opinion, Wolverine's first appearance. At the very end, Wolverine makes a full, you can see him in full, and he says, "I'm Wolverine." So to me, that's a first appearance. However, there are other people who suggest otherwise. And the reason I also think that Wolverine made his first appearance in this book, Hulk 180, is for the longest time, Marvel said that Hulk 180 was Wolverine's first appearance. Now, it was later that Overstreet was the one that suggested that another book, a very famous book, Hulk 181, was the first appearance of Wolverine. Now, why the switch? Well, there's a couple of things going for this book. Now, in this book, we got Wolverine on the cover. That's a good start. It's also the case that Wolverine makes a much greater appearance in this book. He's in multiple panels. He's, kind of throughout the story. This is his first what's called a full appearance, and then the Hulk 180 becomes the first cameo. So that's one of those controversies. What becomes a first full appearance and what becomes a cameo? So that's one of the crazy things like that I find. Like, is it 3 panels? If it's the characters in 3 panels, is that their first full appearance? Is it the first time that we see them head to toe? Is it the first time that we see them with the name, where they actually say, "Hey, my name's Bob," and that's the first appearance of Bob? What makes that first appearance? Okay, and what makes a cameo? What makes So these are the questions that I want to pose out, and I'd love to hear your comments about this. I have a feeling I'm gonna get a lot of heat from this video, but I personally like 180 more than 181 in terms of being Wolverine's first appearance. But that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Now, that's just one book. Okay, that's just one example. Kind of an interesting example, and the reason I actually thought about this whole situation is another kind of weird first appearance. And it's a first appearance of a character. And I mentioned this in another video. I sometimes do these videos where you guess who and who made their first appearance in this book. And the book is Tim Holt 6. Now, this is the first appearance of Rex Fury, also known as the Calico Kid. And that character becomes Ghost Rider. This guy, Ghost Rider, okay? And so this is where the character made his first appearance, but he wasn't the Ghost Rider. He was just a guy, just a normal guy, and he would pretend to be kind of nerdy and kind of wimpy, and then he would be like this gunslinger guy, the Calico Kid, whenever he needed to do something. But then later he became Ghost Rider. So the question becomes, where is his first appearance? Is it his first appearance as a person, like masked or unmasked? It's sort of like Ant-Man. Ant-Man has that same situation where we got Tales to Astonish 27 versus Tales to Astonish 35, where in Tales to Astonish 27 he isn't in costume. He was just a little guy. He's shrunken down. And in 35 he gets the full costume. So those kind of questions, like which is really the first appearance? And in the case of Ant-Man, a lot of collectors go for 27 over 35. Well, then why in the other books is it sometimes the other way around, where they want that first costumed appearance? So these are the kind of questions that I'm trying to get with in this video about really looking at first appearances. So those are two kind of different examples. I kind of want to give you a few more. So one is the Wolverine situation, where we got the cameo versus first full. And the other issue is the first time the character makes the first appearance, and the first time that character becomes their superhero form. So those are a couple examples. Another example is this one. This is a very famous example. This is Malibu Sun 13. Now, there's actually another book that I have that's maybe even earlier than this. It's called Rust. But this is the first appearance of Spawn. And, you got Spawn on the cover. You got Spawn inside the comic as well. He's on the back cover as well. And it even says Spawn. Pretty blatant that this is Spawn, okay? Now, this is before Spawn #1 came out. Now, if you look at any guide, they'll always say Spawn #1 is the first appearance of Spawn. But this is also the first appearance of Spawn too, because this came out first. It has Spawn within the comic. He's throughout the comic. And it's kind of one of those things where what they'll do. This is actually how the grading companies try to get around the controversy a bit. They'll go Spawn cover, centerfold, and back pinup. Predates Spawn #1. They're really trying to skirt around. Oh, it kind of came before Spawn #1, but it's not really this first appearance. So this is an example. Another example is same kind of example is this one. Caliber presents #1, and this is the first appearance of the Crow. Now, there's no Crow story in this. It's not like there's like just like this Malibu one. It's not like there's a Crow story that, it's just that you got a nice full crow on the back. So that's kind of an example. And, this is the first. And if you read the notes, it's always, this is the first appearance of the Crow, which is Crow #1. So this is the kind of controversy. This is another type of first appearance situation where they make an appearance in like an ad or some kind of cover, like, back cover, in the example of the Crow, example of Spawn. And those books, kind of the first appearance. Like, to me, it's the first appearance in print, therefore kind of the first appearance of that character. But there's another example of another kind of controversial situation with first appearances. And that's with this one. Capes. Capes #1. So you're probably wondering, what the heck is Capes #1? Never heard of the book. Well, this is the first appearance of The Walking Dead. And Rick and all those characters, like, not all of them, but, a few of the major characters made their first appearance in this book. And they actually did what's called a preview. So it even says 5 pages, is quite substantial, Walking Dead preview, okay? So by Robert Kirkman. So you got the first bit of the Walking Dead story in this book, 5 pages. That's quite a lot. So you have, do we consider this the first appearance of The Walking Dead? Now, this is a $100 book, whereas this book, which is considered the first appearance of The Walking Dead, which came out later, it says even It says first appearance of Rick Grimes, but I told you Rick Grimes appeared in Capes #1 first. He in 5 pages, so it's not like an insignificant appearance. He was fully there. But that's a preview book. In Do we count previews, or do we consider it, oh, when it's their first in actual comic devoted to them? So that those are the kind of questions we have to ask. And I have like other examples like this that we could kind of look at. And I'm going to do another one. This is kind of a weird one. We got this very strange example. This is it's a very small comic. And we got this one, Masters of the Universe. Okay, and this is the first appearance of He-Man. Okay, so it's like a little mini comic. It came with the toy. It came out before the comic book, but it's actually the first appearance of He-Man in comic. It's actually a comic. It's like you can see, it's like a little comic, but it is the first appearance of He-Man. But does it count as the first appearance of He-Man? So often what they'll do, like one of these things that the grading companies will do, is they'll say, well, hey, it's not the first comic book appearance of that character. It's the first comic-like. It's like they really try to, make it so you can have both ways, where, the comic, even though it was a first printed appearance of that character, it's not the first comic appearance, and therefore it's a little different. Even though it's a mini comic, doesn't quite count, or does it count? This is the kind of controversy that surrounds the whole industry about what is that first appearance. Now, if we use the strict definition of first appearance as being the first appearance in print, then a lot of these issues become even more serious, where previews then become the first appearance, ads become their first appearance. There's a lot of controversy about that. I actually have a good example with Harley Quinn. I don't have it handy, but there's a magazine called Get Them All or something like that, which is the first printed form of Harley Quinn. And she's in several pages of this little book that you would get. Like, it came with like a little cassette, and it was a book. You could read through the book when you listen to the cassette, and it would tell you the story of Batman Adventures. And it came out before Batman Adventures 12, which is the comic book. But it is a comic. It's like comic. It's not comic size, but it is like similar to a comic book. So those are these kind of weird, controversial first appearances. And the problem is, what happens is, like a book like Harley Quinn's book, which is a really expensive book. That's like a $1,000 to $2,000 book. A lot of money has been put in that. Like a whole market has been put into that one book. And then if you say, hey, well, sorry, that book isn't really the first appearance, then what ends up happening is a lot of people freak out. A lot of people who have spent and invested in that first appearance kind of freak out about it. Even more controversial with Harley Quinn, which I didn't bring. I should have brought it, actually, because I have it. I'm a big fan of Harley Quinn. Is first appearance in continuity. That's another one of these first appearance kind of situations where you get Batman Adventures number 12 as being Harley Quinn's first appearance, right? And in comics. And then you get another book, which is the Joker one, where she's like, it's her first appearance in continuity. So you got these kind of two different situations. That's another real awkward thing. Like, which counts as the first appearance? Again, if we go by the printed form, it gets to a different book. If we go by the first appearance just in comic, it's a different appearance. If we go by the first appearance in continuity, it's a different book. And then the cameo and first full appearance comes into play. It can be very confusing. So I hope I've added to this confusion, which is kind of a funny thing. But I'd love to hear people's comments below. what do they think is truly a first appearance of a character in comics or whatever. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on Hulk 180 versus 181 and some of these other ones that I've mentioned. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and check me out on Instagram. Thanks again.